We are starting the audio test on both phones using the ultra-wide lens in 4K 30 FPS. So Galaxy S23 has 50 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra-wide, and 12 megapixel or 10 megapixel telephoto, while Samsung Galaxy S24 Fan Edition has 50 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra-wide, and 8 megapixel telephoto. Also, there's a difference on the front camera, 12 megapixel on Galaxy S23 and 10 megapixel on Galaxy S24 Fan Edition. So I think that's it for the audio test. Now let's check some portrait shots. On 1x, it captures the difference of S23 and S24 FE. You got stronger contrast, warmer photo, and more vivid on the older S23, while you have better exposure, natural looking, with neutral tone on Galaxy S24 Fan Edition. On this shot, Galaxy S23 actually misses on the subject separation altogether, so you will have that issue on the older S series. Indoors, you will see a little bit of artifacts on my face due to darker conditions. Now on 2x, with that 50 megapixel sensor on both phones, they look the same in terms of beautification. Again, there's some difference on the colors, white balance, and exposure. Galaxy S23 will give you more vivid colors, and also the skin tone is a little bit warmer, which is more inviting than the competition, while S23 FE will give you a natural looking portrait that somehow resembles the newer S25 series. On this shot, S23 is just overexposed and grainy. On 3x, using the telephoto, I like the consistency of S24 Fan Edition compared to Galaxy S23. The latest FE is more color accurate than the competition. Looking at my jacket, and also the skin tone is spot on. I also noticed, aside from the color accuracy, S23 is a little bit wider than S24 FE, so this is a matter of personal choice. If you want a more punch in 3x, then S24 FE will provide you that field of view. Selfie is awesome on Galaxy S23. You have a lot of details on my face. Looking at the left side, you will just notice a little bit of miss on the edge detection, but majority of the time, it will give you a really good detailed subject, a little bit more detailed than S24 Fan Edition, but both phones are really good. Now we're testing the portrait video on both phones, starting with Galaxy S23. This is selfie video recording, 4K 30 FPS. And we're switching to the rear camera, again in 4K 30 FPS. Now let's check Galaxy S24 Fan Edition. And this is the selfie video recording of the portrait mode or portrait video on S24 Fan Edition, again in UHD 30 FPS. And we're switching to the rear camera, again UHD 30 FPS. The difference is you have 2x on S24 Fan Edition and 3x on Galaxy S23. We also have 8K video recording on Galaxy S23, 8K 30 FPS. And same with S24 Fan Edition. Now it has a proper 8K 30 FPS. The previous Fan Edition only has 24 FPS. So it's nice that Samsung updated the latest Fan Edition. On the image quality test, both Samsung phones produces really good photos, but definitely there are differences on the colors. Like on the portrait shots, Galaxy S23 is more vivid than the competition. The latest FE will give you natural looking images. Again, both phones are really detailed. If you go on close-up shots, you would also see a little bit of subject separation, which is nice. The sky is generally lighter on Galaxy S24 Fan Edition and more color accurate. Looking at the tree, it's a little bit bluish on Galaxy S23.
Place when you slow it down.
But if you do most of the indoor shots, you will notice that the colors are almost the same for the flowers, stuffed toys, and random colorful things. Also, in terms of brightness, you would see that the images on S23 are better exposed compared to the natural looking S24 Fan Edition, where it crushes the shadows sometimes. And talking about the zoom, you have the ultra wide main and 3x optical zoom, and both has 30x digital crop. I think one of the biggest differences is the slow motion. You got 1080p on S23 and 4K 120 FPS on the latest S24 Fan Edition. This is the video quality test and video stabilization test, starting with the ultra-wide lens in 4K 30 FPS, both 0.6 on S23 and S24 Fan Edition. This is 12 megapixel sensors for both phones. In terms of colors, I think they're both the same. And even the exposure, looking at that building, maybe the difference is the colors. Natural looking on S24 Fan Edition and more saturated on S23. Looking at the video stabilization, now we're switching to the main sensor. This is a 50 megapixel sensor. Look at the flaring here. Both phones manage it well, from the ultra wide lens to the main sensor. Again, looking at the exposure, almost the same for both phones. Again, the colors are more saturated on S23. And in terms of details, really good for both phones. I think they're the same sensor, 50 megapixel. Now we're testing the video stabilization. Now we're testing the ultra wide, the telephoto. Now there's a difference here, 10 megapixel versus 8 megapixel. So for S23 you have 10 megapixel and you have 8 megapixel on S24 Fan Edition. And looking at the colors, do you see any difference? Again, we're checking the video stabilization. And going for the 4D zoom, you got 12x on S23 and also 12x on Galaxy S24 Fan Edition. So same in terms of details and sharpness. Which phone do you think is better? Again, switching back to the main sensor and the ultra wide. Which phone do you think is better?
Late night, feels like I'm all alone.
On night shots, both phones are excellent. This is where you buy an older flagship or regular flagship model if you want a really good camera phone instead of a mid-range phone, because there will still be a marginal difference in terms of low light performance.
On my phone, it might sound stupid, but I could listen to you talk.
You will notice that Galaxy S24 FE is better exposed compared to the competition looking at this image, but S23 manages the noise better looking at this yellow bin.
Let you know that you can't call me tonight. Don't need no reason. It's not urgent.
On pitch black condition, this is where the base model S23 is better than the Fan Edition, because I feel like it has better sharpness and colors than S24 FE.
You're my medicine. Something inside comes alive.
And good thing about these two phones, they can shoot night shots on all three sensors.
Swapping stories and stupid jokes. Nothing important.
We are starting this low light video recording test on Samsung Galaxy S24 Fan Edition. This is a 10 megapixel sensor. I think this is the same sensor as what we have on Galaxy S10 with a slightly smaller lens, f2.4 against f1.9 of S10. So if that's the case, then the sensor on this phone is quite old. Checking the exposure and the sky. Now let's check Galaxy S23. And this is the selfie video recording on Samsung Galaxy S23 in 4K 30 FPS. This is a 12 megapixel sensor, a bump up on the resolution, 10 versus 12. Also, this phone has dual face detection autofocus on the selfie camera, so you'll be in focus whether it's daytime or nighttime. Checking the exposure really quick and the noise. Now let's check the rear cameras. And this is the low light video test, starting with the ultra wide lens in 4K 30 FPS. This is both 12 megapixel sensors on both phones. Looking at the colors or white balance, a little bit warmer on Galaxy S24 Fan Edition, but in terms of sharpness, I think it's better on Galaxy S23. Again, I might be wrong. I'll be checking this in post-production and change my comment on the screen. Now let's check the video stabilization. We're switching to the main sensor. So both 50 megapixel sensors. Looking at the exposure on that building, I think almost the same. Also on this car, I don't see any difference. In terms of white balance, again, a little bit warmer on S24 Fan Edition. If you look on that building, same exposure as well. Now we're doing the video stabilization. And we're switching to 3x. So this is 8 megapixel versus 10 megapixel. And you would notice that it's a little bit sharper on the stop sign for Galaxy S23. Also the snow here. Also in the car. Again, better details on S23. And looking at the Florida zoom, 12x on Galaxy S23 and also 12x on S24 Fan Edition. I think almost the same quality, maybe a little bit better on S23, but let me know. Again, switching back to the main sensor, which phone do you think is better? If you get the answers you need and you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button. These two phones are really solid alternative for Galaxy S25. They are also cheaper. Galaxy S23 has better stabilization, better low light and night shot performance, and you will get a flagship Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, while S24 Fan Edition will give you natural looking images, great color accuracy, you got 4K slow motion, and of course in terms of updates, you will get longer software support on the latest model.